Dear everyone's, feel the heartbeat of change in teaching critical thinking. Practical Wisdom, a soul-stirring work by the legendary Bell Hooks, pen name of Gloria Jean Watkins. A trailblazing Black feminist, scholar, and cultural critic, Bell Hooks writes with a tenderness that cuts through the noise of oppression. Her book is a clarion call to revolutionize education, to make it a sanctuary of critical thought and healing. With unflinching courage, she confronts the ways traditional teaching upholds injustice, offering instead a vision of classrooms alive with dialogue, love, and liberation. Each chapter is a spark, igniting our passion to challenge domination and nurture practical wisdom. Bell Hooks' voice is a beacon, guiding us toward a world where education uplifts every heart. Step into her transformative journey, and let her words awaken your spirit. Critical thinking. Children are naturally inclined toward critical thinking, yet traditional education often suppresses this innate curiosity, training students instead to conform and obey. Teaching critical thinking, then, is a way to restore that natural hunger for thought and empower students to fully realize themselves. It goes beyond merely analyzing and evaluating thought to improve it. It seeks to uncover deeper, core truths that transcend surface-level understanding. Critical thinking is presented as more than just passive consumption. It's an active process involving analyzing and evaluating thinking to improve it, seeing multiple sides of an issue and being open to new evidence, demanding claims be supported by evidence, determining what is significant and understanding core, underlying truths, being self-directed, self-disciplined, self-monitored, and self-corrective. Moreover, critical thinking invites active participation from both teachers and students, transforming the classroom into a space of intense engagement and deep learning. In a society that often devalues true knowledge in favor of material gain, nurturing critical thinking is vital to cultivating and sustaining democratic consciousness. It gives individuals the power to think independently, to act with intention, and to challenge entrenched prejudices embedded in systems of domination, such as racism, sexism, and class exploitation. Teaching critical thinking also helps to decolonize the mind, by revisiting the biases that shape how we learn and understand. It restores integrity to the classroom and cultivates practical wisdom, sharpening our awareness and helping us live more fully awake. Ultimately, critical thinking inspires lifelong learning, revealing that ideas are never fixed, they are fluid, always evolving, opening up space for innovation and personal freedom. In the sections that follow, you will find transformative approaches to teaching critical thinking, each one rooted in love, courage, and the deep belief that every child has the right to think for themselves and to shape their own understanding of the world. Democratic education. Bell Hooks passionately advocates for classrooms as spaces of shared power and mutual respect. She critiques traditional hierarchical models of education that silence student voices, emphasizing instead the need for inclusive dialogue where every participant contributes to the learning process. Drawing from her own experiences in segregated schools, Bell Hooks illustrates how genuine engagement and care from teachers can inspire a lifelong love of learning. She underscores that democratic education is not merely about content delivery but about fostering critical consciousness and active participation. By embracing vulnerability and authenticity, educators can create environments where students feel valued and empowered. Ultimately, Bell Hooks envisions education as a collaborative journey toward freedom, where teaching and learning are acts of love and liberation. Engaged pedagogy. Bell Hooks advocates for a transformative approach to education that intertwines intellectual rigor with emotional and spiritual growth. She emphasizes that true learning occurs when educators and students engage in a mutual process of self-actualization, where teaching becomes an act of love and liberation. Bell Hooks challenges traditional hierarchies in the classroom, urging teachers to acknowledge their own vulnerabilities and to foster environments where students feel empowered to share their authentic selves. By integrating personal experiences into the learning process, engaged pedagogy transcends mere information transfer, cultivating a community of learners committed to critical inquiry and social justice. Ultimately, Bell Hooks envisions education as a holistic practice that nurtures the mind, body, and spirit, leading to profound personal and societal transformation. Decolonization. Educators need to recognize and dismantle the lingering colonial influences embedded within educational systems. Bell Hooks emphasizes that education has historically been used to perpetuate white supremacy and suppress marginalized voices, often presenting biased narratives as universal truths. The author advocates for a critical pedagogy that actively confronts these biases, encouraging both teachers and students to question dominant ideologies and to embrace diverse perspectives. She underscores that decolonization is not a one-time event but an ongoing process of unlearning and reimagining. By fostering environments where all students feel seen and heard, educators can transform classrooms into spaces of liberation and empowerment. Ultimately, Bell Hooks envisions a decolonized education as one that cultivates critical consciousness, nurtures authenticity, and paves the way for a more just and inclusive society. Integrity. Bell Hooks explores integrity as the cornerstone of transformative education, emphasizing honesty, accountability, and authenticity in teaching. She argues that educators must model integrity by aligning their actions with their values, fostering trust and genuine connection with students. Bell Hooks highlights the courage required to confront personal and institutional contradictions, such as biases or oppressive practices, to create ethical learning environments. By embracing vulnerability and self-reflection, teachers can inspire students to engage critically with the world. Integrity, for Bell Hooks, is a radical act of resistance against dehumanizing systems, empowering both educators and students to pursue truth and justice. This commitment cultivates a democratic classroom where mutual respect and critical consciousness thrive. Purpose. Teaching with purpose is essential for transformative education. Bell Hooks argues that educators must deeply reflect on their motivations and intentions, ensuring that their teaching practices align with a commitment to justice, love, and the holistic development of students. She critiques traditional educational models that prioritize conformity and rote learning, advocating instead for an engaged pedagogy that fosters critical thinking and personal growth. By teaching with clear purpose, educators can create learning environments that empower students to question, imagine, and enact meaningful change in their lives and communities. Ultimately, Bell Hooks envisions purposeful teaching as a radical act that nurtures both individual and collective liberation. Collaboration. Bell Hooks, in dialogue with Ron Scapp, passionately advocates for transforming classrooms into spaces of mutual engagement and shared learning. They challenge traditional hierarchical models of education, where authority is centralized, and instead promote a collaborative approach that values every participant's voice. By fostering an environment of trust and openness, educators and students can co-create knowledge, leading to deeper understanding and personal growth. This collaborative pedagogy not only enhances critical thinking but also nurtures a sense of community, empowering all involved to contribute meaningfully. Ultimately, Bell Hooks envisions education as a collective journey, where collaboration becomes the cornerstone of transformative learning. Conversation. Conversation moves beyond passive information reception, fostering an interactive partnership between teacher and student where knowledge is mutually produced. It encourages every individual voice, working to develop a community of vision by sharing ideas across differences. Conversation is a cooperative enterprise, sharing power and knowledge, enabling students who feel voiceless to claim their subject position and be heard. This critical exchange helps clear away prejudices, ignorance, and false assumptions, leading to a deeper understanding of complex issues. Even when discussions are fierce and intense, conversation opens the mind, stimulating critical thinking and providing meaningful intellectual nourishment. Telling the story. Bell Hooks presents storytelling as a profound power for fostering learning and building genuine community. She argues that stories are more true than facts because they provide the context needed to grasp deeper truths. Within the classroom, storytelling encourages active listening and mutual participation, vital for creating a vibrant learning community. Stories, both personal and collective, are vital tools for building community and fostering understanding in the classroom. By embracing storytelling, educators and students can create more inclusive and empathetic learning environments that honor diverse perspectives and lived experiences. Bell Hooks advocates for the integration of storytelling into pedagogy as a means of nurturing critical thinking, authenticity, and connection. Imagination. Bell Hooks contends that what we cannot imagine cannot come into being, highlighting how imagination illuminates spaces beyond data and facts, pointing us toward new pathways, possibilities, hopes, and dreams. While the natural imagination of children is often suppressed by a culture that seeks conformity, imagination remains a powerful mode of resistance and a survival lifeline. Without the ability to imagine, individuals remain stuck. Bell Hooks argues that cultivating an unfettered imagination in the classroom expands the space for transformative learning. Practices like spontaneous writing can help stir this collective imagination. Embracing imagination provides the creative energy needed for new thought and more engaging ways of knowing, embodying the very art of possibility. To lecture or not. Bell Hooks offers a critical perspective on the traditional large lecture format in education. She compellingly argues that while lectures can serve as an appetizer, they often promote passivity and discourage the active participation essential for genuine learning. Bell Hooks finds the question and answer session to be the vital main meal, the moment of participatory engagement where a learning community is truly built. She emphasizes that genuine learning is mutual, with both teacher and student giving and receiving. Acknowledging the challenges, she advocates for teachers to be truthful, even admitting what they don't know, which fosters a more authentic environment. The author suggests that the most meaningful and useful learning occurs when everyone, teachers and students, recognizes their shared responsibility in creating the learning community. She looks forward to a future where learning moves away from passive reception towards more conversational and engaged practices. Humor in the classroom. Humor, when used thoughtfully, breaks down barriers, fosters connection, and humanizes the classroom by easing tensions and encouraging openness. Bell Hooks emphasizes that humor must be rooted in respect and sensitivity to avoid reinforcing oppressive dynamics, such as stereotypes or exclusion. By incorporating playful, authentic humor, educators can make learning more engaging, helping students feel safe to express themselves and take intellectual risks. She highlights how humor aligns with liberatory pedagogy, countering the rigidity of traditional education systems that prioritize control over creativity. For Bell Hooks, humor is a radical act that nurtures critical thinking by inviting students to question norms with joy and curiosity. However, she cautions that humor requires self-awareness to ensure it uplifts rather than alienates. This approach transforms classrooms into dynamic spaces where laughter and learning intertwine to empower students. Bell Hooks inspires educators to embrace humor as a pathway to community, critical consciousness, and liberation. She sees humor as a spark that ignites transformative education, fostering hope and connection. Crying time. Bell Hooks observes that discussions on sensitive topics, such as race, gender, and class, can evoke strong emotional responses, including tears, particularly from students who are grappling with these issues for the first time. Rather than viewing such emotional expressions as disruptions, Bell Hooks advocates for acknowledging and embracing them as integral to the learning process. She cautions against the trend of creating safe classrooms that avoid conflict and tension, arguing that this approach can stifle meaningful dialogue and hinder critical thinking. By allowing space for emotional expression, educators can foster an environment of authenticity and vulnerability, encouraging deeper engagement and understanding. Bell Hooks emphasizes that embracing the full range of human emotions in the classroom is not a sign of weakness but a pathway to transformative education. Ultimately, she envisions a learning space where emotional honesty is valued, enabling students and teachers to connect more profoundly and engage in genuine critical inquiry. Conflict. Bell Hooks challenges conventional notions of classroom safety and argues that conflict is not only inevitable but can be a catalyst for learning. Discussions about safety often emerged in feminist classrooms but sometimes reflected a fear of disagreement rather than a genuine desire for productive dialogue. Bell Hooks notes that as classrooms became more diverse, particularly with the inclusion of Black students, students of color from poor and working-class backgrounds, differences in experience and perspective increased the potential for tension. Bell Hooks argues that the pressure to maintain a non-combative atmosphere in the name of safety can actually silence discussion and prevent dialectical exchange. Instead of defining safety as the absence of conflict or universal agreement, she proposes thinking of safety as knowing how to cope in situations of risk. This perspective recognizes that, like intimate relationships, disagreements will occur, but the will to connect and communicate will prevail. She emphasizes that trust must be cultivated in the classroom, linked to accountability and mindful speech, to allow for open and critical exchange. Bell Hooks laments that students often fear disagreeing or engaging in critical exchange because they prioritize being liked over learning, which undermines democratic education. Teachers, too, sometimes maintain safe classrooms because it's easier than teaching students how to engage in meaningful, even intense, critical dialogue. Teaching students to value dissent and cope with conflict prepares them for diverse settings and challenges hierarchies. True safety comes from discerning risky situations without threat from those that are genuinely unsafe. Learning past the hate. Hate, often internalized through societal conditioning, stifles critical thinking and perpetuates division in classrooms. Bell Hooks advocates for a pedagogy of love and compassion to counter hate, fostering environments where students confront biases and embrace mutual respect. By encouraging open dialogue and self-reflection, educators can help students unlearn harmful prejudices and build community. She emphasizes that this process requires vulnerability and courage from both teachers and students to challenge systemic injustices. Bell Hooks sees learning past hate as a liberatory act that empowers students to envision a just world. This approach transforms classrooms into spaces of healing and critical consciousness. She inspires educators to model empathy, making education a tool for dismantling hate and fostering hope. Honoring teachers. Bell Hooks delivers a deeply heartfelt reflection on the value of teachers and the sacred nature of the teaching profession. She reminds us that too often, teachers, especially those who inspire critical thinking and nurture wisdom, are undervalued or forgotten in a culture that prioritizes measurable outcomes over transformative learning. Bell Hooks calls for a cultural shift where educators are celebrated not just for the knowledge they impart, but for their courage, compassion, and ability to shape human hearts and minds. She speaks of honoring mentors who guide students toward self-actualization, emphasizing that respect and gratitude toward teachers should be an ongoing practice, not a fleeting gesture. The chapter also explores the emotional labor teachers perform, often unseen, and the personal sacrifices they make to foster spaces of genuine growth. Bell Hooks encourages both students and society to uplift teachers, recognizing their essential role in building a more just, enlightened world. When we honor teachers, we honor the very foundation of learning, freedom, and human dignity. By cultivating gratitude and reverence for educators, we help sustain a culture where critical thought and wisdom can flourish for generations to come. Teachers against teaching. Bell Hooks examines the pervasive issue of boring classrooms, challenging the student tendency to place blame solely on professors. While acknowledging that many teachers may lack enthusiasm or communication skills, she emphasizes that students also actively shape classroom dynamics through their level of engagement or passivity. Bell Hooks is critical of teachers who are disengaged, authoritarian, or use their position to reinforce systems of domination like racism, sexism, or class elitism, actions she notes can be deeply damaging to students. She argues that genuine learning requires mutual participation and urges students to contribute actively to making the classroom an interesting and lively space. A crucial, inspiring takeaway is her call for students to provide teachers with constructive critical feedback, even anonymously, to inform them when their actions are perceived as wounding or dehumanizing. Bell Hooks holds that most teachers desire to work effectively and improve, suggesting this feedback can be a vital tool for their growth. Redefining education means helping teachers understand how to create conditions where learning can truly emerge, moving past teaching for mere compliance and avoiding fostering resentment. Teaching, framed as a leadership position, necessitates developing effective ways to initiate and maintain engaging classroom dynamics for everyone involved. Self-esteem. Self-esteem is a crucial, yet often overlooked, element in education, particularly in teacher training for college professors. She challenges the notion that intellectual capability automatically means high self-esteem, revealing that many smart individuals may use academic success to mask deep insecurities. Bell Hooks defines healthy self-esteem as a fundamental confidence in one's ability to think, cope with life's challenges, and a sense of inherent worthiness. She highlights that students often arrive in classrooms with deeply wounded self-esteem, which significantly hinders their ability to learn. Bell Hooks asserts that professors hold immense power over a student's self-worth and should use this power to nurture potential rather than causing damage through disregard or shaming. Recognizing self-esteem as a barrier to learning, teachers have a responsibility to help students work through these issues. Empowering students to take responsibility for their own learning and evaluation is a vital way to build healthy self-esteem. Bell Hooks envisions a hopeful future where teacher training focuses on cultivating self-esteem in both educators and students, creating learning environments founded on mutual respect, care, and cooperation where individuals can truly thrive psychologically. The joy of reading. Bell Hooks celebrates reading as a liberatory act that sparks critical thinking and personal transformation. She argues that reading opens doors to diverse perspectives, empowering students to challenge oppressive narratives and imagine new possibilities. Bell Hooks emphasizes the need for educators to foster a love for reading by connecting texts to students' lives, making it a joyful, communal experience. She critiques educational systems that reduce reading to rote tasks, stripping away its potential for wonder and discovery. By creating inclusive classrooms where all voices are valued, teachers can inspire students to engage deeply with literature. Bell Hooks sees reading as a radical tool for self-discovery and resistance against dominator culture. This approach transforms classrooms into vibrant spaces where curiosity and critical consciousness thrive. She inspires educators to rekindle the joy of reading, making it a pathway to empowerment and social change. The chapter underscores reading's role in building empathy and hope. Bell Hooks envisions reading as a lifelong journey toward freedom and justice. Intellectual life. Bell Hooks passionately argues that intellectual life is not confined to academia but is a vital, democratic pursuit accessible to everyone. She insists that true intellectual engagement requires critical thinking and a willingness to question dominant narratives, especially those shaped by race, gender, and class hierarchies. Bell Hooks challenges the notion that intellectualism is elitist, instead framing it as a collective and liberatory practice that flourishes when diverse voices are included and respected. She underscores the transformative power of reading and dialogue, advocating for classrooms that nurture curiosity, free speech, and open inquiry. For Bell Hooks, intellectual life demands courage, the courage to confront uncomfortable truths, to learn from works even when their authors are flawed, and to resist the silencing of marginalized perspectives. She highlights the importance of self-esteem and emotional honesty, suggesting that intellectual growth is intimately tied to self-knowledge and vulnerability. Bell Hooks also addresses the challenges faced by educators, particularly those from marginalized backgrounds, in maintaining authority and authenticity without succumbing to stereotypes. She encourages teachers to embrace humor, empathy, and humanity as tools for connection and learning. Bell Hooks celebrates intellectual life as joyful, communal, and deeply transformative, a practice that empowers individuals and communities to imagine and create a more just world. Spirituality. Bell Hooks offers an inspiring vision for integrating spiritual awareness into the educational environment, sharply distinguishing it from traditional religious dogma. Bell Hooks emphasizes that spirituality is fundamentally distinct from religion. Drawing on the Dalai Lama, She defines spirituality as focusing on universal qualities of the human spirit such as love, compassion, patience, tolerance, forgiveness, and a sense of responsibility. These spiritual qualities, when brought into the classroom, are crucial for establishing an atmosphere of trust that draws both teachers and students closer together. Bell Hooks echoes Parker Palmer's sentiment that education, when infused with spirituality, is about healing and wholeness, empowerment, liberation, transcendence, and renewing the vitality of life, enabling students to find and claim themselves and their place in the world. This cultivation of an inner life and emotional awareness leads to a sense of the sacred that forms the very foundation of all learning. Significantly, Bell Hooks argues that critical thinking is a direct path to cultivating this greater awareness, allowing students to recognize the interconnected nature of life and encounter the sacred. Spirituality in the classroom is less about explicit God talk and more about conscious practice, how individuals live and relate to themselves and others. This mindful approach can lead to ecstatic experience and a sensation of communal spirit, fostering the radical openness necessary for genuine academic and intellectual growth. Bell Hooks concludes by asserting that the classroom can become a place where paradise can be realized, a place of passion and possibility, a place where spirit matters, leading to deeper connection and understanding within the learning community. Touch. The author courageously explores a topic often silenced in educational spaces: the role of physical touch in teaching and human connection. She acknowledges the fear and suspicion that surrounds touch in academic environments, especially given histories of abuse and power imbalances. Yet, she challenges the blanket demonization of touch, arguing that when rooted in care, respect, and consent, touch can be a powerful expression of empathy, solidarity, and love. A hug, a handshake, a tap on the shoulder, or even simply a hand gently resting on an arm. These actions can create a space of comfort beyond words, create deep emotional support and trust. She calls for a more nuanced understanding of touch, one that honors its healing potential while remaining mindful of boundaries. At its heart, this is about reclaiming our humanity in the classroom, recognizing that we are not just minds, but bodies and hearts too. By inviting educators and students to engage with touch thoughtfully and ethically, Bell Hooks encourages the creation of learning spaces that are not only intellectually rich but also emotionally and spiritually safe. She reminds us that to fully teach and learn, we must be willing to connect, not just through words, but through presence, warmth, and care. To love again. Bell Hooks offers a profoundly inspiring argument for making love the foundational principle of classroom pedagogy. Bell Hooks defines love as a combination of care, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, respect, and trust. She asserts that when these principles guide teacher-student interaction, they create an atmosphere of trust conducive to optimal learning. Echoing Parker Palmer, Bell Hooks emphasizes that the very origins of knowledge is love. Teaching with love allows educators to respond to the unique concerns of individual students and acknowledge emotional intelligence, which is critical for genuine engagement. Bell Hooks challenges the misconception that love leads to a lack of objectivity or boundary issues, arguing it instead enhances understanding of students' capabilities and limitations, creating a safe space for vulnerability and growth. Talking sex. Bell Hooks bravely addresses the silence and discomfort that often surround discussions of sexuality in educational spaces. She argues that avoiding conversations about sex leaves students vulnerable to shame, confusion, and manipulation, while reinforcing a culture of fear and repression. For Bell Hooks, open, honest dialogue about sexuality is essential to a holistic education that nurtures both mind and spirit. She challenges educators to break the silence by approaching sex with honesty, respect, and critical thought, not as taboo, but as a vital aspect of human experience. Bell Hooks believes that when we talk about sex in ways that affirm consent, dignity, and mutual respect, we empower students to make informed, healthy choices. She emphasizes that sexuality is deeply tied to identity, power, and self-worth, and that ignoring it can perpetuate harm. Teaching as prophetic vocation. The author elevates teaching to a sacred calling, one rooted in truth-telling, justice, and spiritual purpose. The teacher not merely as an instructor, but as a prophet. Someone who dares to speak what others fear, who guides students toward transformation, and who envisions a more liberated world. Bell Hooks calls for educators to embrace this prophetic role with humility and courage, understanding that teaching is not just about delivering content but about shaping consciousness. It means standing in integrity, even when it's unpopular, and modeling the very values, love, honesty, resistance, that we hope to inspire in others. She acknowledges that this path can be lonely and demanding, but insists that it is also deeply fulfilling and necessary. Practical wisdom. The author offers a profoundly inspiring argument for critical thinking as a path to a more fulfilled and engaged life. Bell Hooks asserts that committing to critical thinking is a fundamental choice that opposes educational systems fostering passive learning, instead promoting self-responsibility and action. She posits that practical wisdom inherently links theory and practice, recognizing that knowledge is deeply shaped by experience and, in turn, influences our values and actions. Bell Hooks challenges the common perception of intellectuals as dispassionate, arguing that true intellectual pursuit, driven by a love of truth, is inherently a compassionate path rooted in understanding and empathy. This process cultivates radical openness and an ongoing experience of wonder, as individuals remain lifelong learners eager to explore evolving ideas. Crucially, Bell Hooks democratizes critical thinking, affirming that it is accessible to everyone in a profoundly democratic way of knowing that encourages examining reality beyond the surface. She also highlights the vital role of intuition and emotional intelligence in the pursuit of knowledge, integrating factual data with social skills for a pragmatic approach to learning. The author envisions critical thinking as a transformative force, enabling individuals to live more fully and consciously, and to use knowledge to positively change the world. Everyone's, in a world that often silences questioning, Bell Hooks reminds us that critical thinking is an act of freedom. Teaching it is not just about shaping minds, but about awakening hearts. Let's carry her wisdom forward, and create classrooms and lives rooted in love, courage, and truth. Unlock more great book summaries. Subscribe so you never miss a new one.